I rubbed my eyes, struggling to focus on the seemingly endless pile of AP history essays before me. The clock on my classroom wall ticked relentlessly, a constant reminder of the late hour. 9:47 p.m. Vanessa would be wondering where I was. Just a few more, I muttered, reaching for my lukewarm coffee. As I took a sip, my laptop screen flickered and went dark. No, no, no. I groaned, frantically tapping keys and willing the machine back to life. But it was no use. The battery had finally given up the ghost. With a weary sigh, I gathered my things and headed for the parking lot. As I drove home, my mind drifted to the mountain of work still waiting for me. I would have to finish grading those essays tonight if I wanted to return them tomorrow as promised. The house was quiet when I arrived. I found a note from Vanessa on the kitchen counter. Working late. Leftovers in the fridge. Love you. I smiled, touched by her thoughtfulness despite the pang of guilt over my own tardiness. I warmed up a plate of lasagna and carried it to our home office. Vanessa's laptop sat on the desk, its slim silver form a stark contrast to my clunky work-issued behemoth. I hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. She would not mind if I borrowed it to finish my work. As the computer booted up, I savored a bite of lasagna. I navigated to my cloud storage, eager to access the rubric I had created for grading the essays. A chat window popped up in the corner of the screen, catching my eye. My fork clattered to the plate as I read the message. Nathan, can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. Hotels booked, same place as last time. The room seemed to tilt sideways as I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. Nathan, my brother, Nathan, messaging Vanessa, calling her babe, booking a hotel room. With trembling hands, I scrolled up through the chat history, my eyes darting back and forth, absorbing snippets of their conversation. The conversation painted a horrifying picture. Vanessa, miss you already. Last night was amazing. Nathan, God, you're incredible. I can't get enough of you. Vanessa, we need to be more careful. Caleb almost caught me deleting our texts last week. My breath came in short, sharp gasps as I continued to scroll. The messages went back years. Years of secret meetings, passionate declarations, and intricate lies. My wife and my brother, carrying on an affair right under my nose. A detached part of my mind noted the irony. Here I was, a history teacher, uncovering a secret history of my own life. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all, but the sound caught in my throat, transforming into a choked sob. With shaking fingers, I minimized the chat window and began to search Vanessa's computer. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, violating my wife's privacy even as my heart shattered into a million pieces. But I couldn't stop. I had to know the full extent of their betrayal. I found a folder labeled Work Projects, buried deep in a maze of subfolders. Inside were hundreds of photos, Vanessa and Nathan together in various exotic locations. Paris, Rome, Bali. All those business trips they had taken over the years were suddenly cast in a sickening new light. My eyes burned as I flipped through the images. Vanessa and Nathan posed in front of the Eiffel Tower, his arm around her waist, the two of them on a sunset beach, sharing a passionate kiss. My wife and my brother, looking happier than I had ever seen either of them. Next, I discovered a folder of credit card statements. My stomach churned as I scrolled through page after page of incriminating evidence. Expensive hotel stays, lavish dinners, jewelry purchases, all carefully hidden from me over the years. But the final blow came when I stumbled upon a hidden email about a private medical appointment. The cryptic language hinted at a possible pregnancy scare. My mind reeled as I considered the implications. Our daughter, Emily, a beautiful 5-year-old girl, might not be my biological child. I do not know how long I sat there, staring at the screen as my world crumbled around me. But as the initial shock began to fade, a cold, calculated anger took its place. I was a history teacher, yes, but I had always maintained a hobby-level interest in digital forensics. Now, those skills would serve me well. With methodical precision, I began documenting everything I had found. I took screenshots, copied files, and created backups of all the incriminating evidence. As I worked, I made sure to cover my tracks, using my knowledge of digital forensics to ensure I left no trace of my discovery. By the time I heard Vanessa's car pulling into the driveway, I had compiled a damning dossier of their betrayal. I quickly closed all the windows, erased my digital footprints, and retreated to our bedroom, my mind racing with plans for what would come next. The next evening, I waited until Emily was tucked into bed before approaching Vanessa. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced my voice to remain calm and steady. "Vanessa, can we talk for a moment?" I asked, gesturing toward the living room couch. She looked up from her phone, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. "Sure, honey. Is everything okay?" I sat down across from her, studying her face. The face I had woken up to for the past 10 years, the face I thought I knew better than my own. Now, it felt like I was looking at a stranger. "I wanted to ask you about Nathan," I began, keeping my tone neutral. Vanessa's eyebrows knitted together. "Nathan? What about him? You two seem to spend a lot of time together," I said, watching her reaction carefully. "I was just wondering about the nature of your relationship." "What do you mean?" Vanessa asked, her voice rising slightly. "He's your brother. We're friends, of course." I nodded slowly, as if considering her words. "Just friends? Nothing more?" Vanessa's eyes darted away for a split second before meeting mine again. "Caleb, what are you implying?" "Nathan and I work together sometimes, that is all." I leaned forward, my gaze never leaving her face. "Are you certain there is nothing else you wish to tell me, Vanessa?" She shifted uncomfortably on the couch, her fingers twisting in her lap. "I do not know what you are talking about, Caleb. You are beginning to worry me." I reached into my pocket and retrieved my phone with deliberate slowness. I pulled up one of the photographs I had discovered, Vanessa and Nathan kissing on that sunset beach. I turned the screen toward her. "How about now?" I asked quietly. "Is there anything you wish to tell me now?" The color drained from Vanessa's face as she stared at the image. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. "I know everything, Vanessa," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "The affair, the trips, the secret meetings, all of it." Vanessa's composure crumbled. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she buried her face in her hands. "Oh God, Caleb, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." I sat back, watching her break down. A part of me wanted to comfort her, to take her in my arms as I had done so many times before, but that impulse was overshadowed by the cold, hard knot of betrayal in my chest. "How long?" I asked. Vanessa looked up, her mascara smeared around red-rimmed eyes. 6 years, she whispered. The admission struck me like a physical blow. 6 years, more than half our marriage. "Why?" I managed to choke out. Vanessa wiped at her eyes, her shoulders slumping in defeat. I do not know. It just happened. Nathan was there, and he understood me in a way that," she trailed off, realizing how her words must sound. "In a way that I did not." I finished for her, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. She nodded miserably. "Caleb, I never meant to hurt you. I love you, I do. It is just, Nathan could give me things that I could not." I interrupted. "Like what, Vanessa? What could my brother give you that I could not?" Vanessa's eyes dropped to the floor. "Financial security," she mumbled. "I know it's terrible, but I was scared, a teacher's salary. I didn't think it would be enough for the life I wanted." Her words cut deeper than I thought possible. All these years, I'd thought we were happy, that we were building a life together, and all along she'd been looking for an escape route. "And Emily?" I asked, dreading the answer but needing to know. Vanessa's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. "What about Emily?" I steeled myself, forcing the words out. "Is she mine?" Vanessa's silence that followed was deafening. Her face crumpled, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks, and in that moment, I had my answer. "I don't know," she whispered. "I honestly don't know." I closed my eyes, feeling as if the ground had fallen out from beneath me. Our daughter, the little girl I'd rocked to sleep, taught to ride a bike, helped with her ABCs, might not be mine. When I opened my eyes again, Vanessa was looking at me with a mixture of fear and desperation. "Please, Caleb," she begged. "You can't tell anyone. Think about Emily. Think about our families, our friends. It would destroy everything." I stared at her, marveling at her audacity. She betrayed me in the worst possible way, and now she was asking me to protect her reputation. "I'll think about it," I said finally, my voice devoid of emotion. As Vanessa continued to plead and apologize, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. Unbeknownst to her, I had been recording our entire conversation on a hidden device. It was just one more piece of evidence to add to my growing collection. After the confrontation, I retreated to my home office, my mind racing with plans. The soft glow of my computer screen illuminated the room as I delved into research mode. I spent hours poring over state laws on adultery, asset division, and child custody. Each piece of information I uncovered was carefully filed away in a secure, encrypted digital folder. This would be my arsenal, my protection against whatever might come next. As the first rays of dawn began to peek through the blinds, I reached out to a former student of mine, now a ruthless divorce attorney known for handling complex cases. I composed a carefully worded email, hinting at my situation without revealing too much. I needed someone who wouldn't flinch at what was to come. Over the next few days, I began meticulously documenting every interaction with Vanessa. Each text message, each email, each conversation was saved and cataloged. I watched her with new eyes, noting every inconsistency, every nervous glance at her phone. I started making small cash withdrawals from various ATMs, building up an emergency fund that Vanessa couldn't trace. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a safety net for whatever might come next. Late one night, I created a detailed timeline of Vanessa and Nathan's affair, cross-referencing it with family events, birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, all now tainted by the knowledge of their deceit. It was a painful exercise, but a necessary one. I discreetly reached out to a private investigator, arranging a meeting under the guise of research for a new history course. I needed more evidence, more ammunition for the battle I knew was coming. As I delved deeper into the world of high-stakes divorce, I began researching advanced financial strategies to protect my assets, trusts, offshore accounts, cryptocurrency. I explored every avenue, determined to come out of this with my future secure. Through it all, I developed a comprehensive plan for my revenge, my personal protection, and my future security. It was a chess game now, and I intended to be several moves ahead at all times. Vanessa noticed a change in me, of course. She would try to initiate conversations, to apologize again and again, but I would simply nod, give non-committal responses, and retreat back into my planning. In quiet moments, usually late at night when the house was still, I would allow myself to feel the full weight of her betrayal. The pain would wash over me, raw and unrelenting, a stark reminder of the trust that had been shattered and the life I was now fighting to reclaim. Waves of anguish washed over me, threatening to pull me under. But then I would think of my plans, of the justice I would eventually see served, and I pushed the pain aside. I stood in front of my AP history class discussing the intricacies of the Civil War. My voice was steady, my gestures animated. To anyone watching, I was the picture of a dedicated educator, fully invested in his students' learning. Inside, I was screaming. It had been 2 weeks since I discovered Vanessa's affair with Nathan. 2 weeks of pretending everything was normal. 2 weeks of dying a little more each day. But I couldn't let it show. Not here, not now. Mr. Matthews? A student's voice broke through my inner turmoil. Are you okay? I realized I had paused mid-sentence, staring blankly at the whiteboard. Shaking off the momentary lapse, I turned back to the class with a smile. Sorry about that, folks. Got lost in thought for a moment there. Now, where were we? Yes, the Battle of Gettysburg. As I launched back into the lesson, I silently berated myself. I couldn't afford slip-ups like that. My plan depended on maintaining absolute normalcy at school. In fact, I needed to do more than just maintain. I needed to excel. After class, I made my way to the principal's office. I had been mulling over an idea for weeks, and now seemed like the perfect time to pitch it. Come in, Caleb, Principal Anderson called out as I knocked on her open door. What can I do for you? I took a seat across from her desk, leaning forward with an enthusiasm I didn't entirely have to fake. I've been thinking about the bullying issues we've been seeing lately. I began. I'd like to propose a new anti-bullying initiative for the school. Anderson's eyebrows rose with interest. Go on. For the next 20 minutes, I outlined my plan. Peer mediation programs, awareness campaigns, guest speakers. I had done my research, and I presented it all with passionate conviction. By the time I finished, Anderson was nodding approvingly. This is excellent work, Caleb. I'm impressed by your initiative. If you're willing to take the lead on this, I think we can make it happen. I left her office with a spring in my step that was only partially an act. Leading this program would cement my reputation as a caring, involved teacher. It would also keep me busy and keep suspicion at bay. That evening, I attended my first meeting of the local historical society. As I mingled with the town's history buffs, I couldn't help but see the strategic value in expanding my social circle. These were respected members of the community. Their good opinion could be invaluable in the months to come. "Caleb," a familiar voice called out. I turned to see Tom Bradshaw, one of Vanessa's coworkers, approaching with a smile. "Didn't expect to see you here. Where's Vanessa?" I plastered on a rueful smile. "Oh, you know how busy she's been lately. I thought I'd let her have a quiet night at home." Tom nodded sympathetically. "She has been putting in a lot of hours." "You're a good man, Caleb." If only he knew. As I drove home that night, my mind was racing with plans: the anti-bullying initiative at school, the historical society, the after-school tutoring program I was considering starting. Each piece was a carefully placed stepping stone, leading me towards my ultimate goal. When I arrived home, Vanessa was curled up on the couch watching TV. She looked up as I entered, her eyes hopeful. "Hey," she said softly. "How was your evening?" I shrugged, keeping my tone casual. "Not bad. The historical society meeting was interesting. How about you? Did you get some rest?" She nodded, then hesitated. I was thinking maybe we could talk about everything." For a moment, I was tempted. Part of me, a part one, was trying desperately to silence. Still loved her, still wanted to believe there was a way to fix this. But I couldn't. Not if I wanted my plan to succeed. "Actually," I said, forcing a yawn, "I'm pretty beat." "Rain check?" "Oh, and I almost forgot. I'll be staying late at. Tomorrow is a school day, and I am starting a new tutoring program. You should see if Nathan would like to grab dinner or something." A flash of guilt appeared in her eyes, quickly replaced by confusion. "You want me to have dinner with Nathan?" I shrugged again, the picture of nonchalance. "Why not? He is my brother, after all, and you two work together. It's not like I can ask you to never see him again, right?" As I headed upstairs, leaving a bewildered Vanessa behind, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Let her spend time with Nathan. Let them think I was oblivious, or forgiving, or just plain stupid. It would only make their fall that much harder in the end. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my new project with gusto. The anti-bullying initiative was a hit, earning me praise from students, parents, and fellow teachers alike. My after-school tutoring program quickly became popular, with struggling students showing marked improvement. I even started a blog, sharing history lessons and life advice. It was partly a way to build my public persona, but I found I actually enjoyed the writing. It gave me an outlet for the thoughts and feelings I couldn't express in my day-to-day life. All the while, I was laying the groundwork for my revenge. Casual conversations with friends became opportunities to plant seeds of doubt about Vanessa's fidelity. "You know," it's funny, I'd say with a rueful chuckle, "Vanessa's been working so much lately. I feel like I hardly see her. Thank goodness for Nathan. At least someone's keeping an eye on her at the office, right?" I watched as concern and suspicion bloomed in their eyes, even as they rushed to reassure me. It was almost too easy. But the real masterstroke came when I volunteered to chaperone the senior class trip. A week away from home, surrounded by witnesses who could vouch for my whereabouts every minute of every day. It was the perfect alibi for what I had planned. The night before I left for the trip, I made an anonymous call to several local businesses that utilized a voice modulator I had purchased online were tipped off about Nathan's history of fraudulent practices. It was a calculated risk, but one I felt confident taking. By the time I returned from the trip, the whispers would have started to circulate. As I boarded the bus with the excited seniors the next morning, I caught sight of Vanessa watching from the parking lot. She raised a hand in farewell, her expression a mixture of guilt and longing. I waved back, my smile never reaching my eyes. Let her think I was oblivious. Let her think she was getting away with it all. I sat across from Vanessa at our kitchen table, my expression a carefully crafted mask of excitement and nervousness. The paper spread out before us held the key to the next phase of my plan. "I know it sounds crazy," I said, "but think about it, Vanessa. This could be huge." She looked at me skeptically, her brow furrowed as she scanned the documents again. "I don't know, Caleb. A tech startup? It seems risky." I nodded, acknowledging her concern. "It is risky, but Jake was one of my best students. He's brilliant, and this idea of his, it could revolutionize the industry. We'd be getting in on the ground floor." Of course, there was no Jake, no brilliant former student with a revolutionary idea. The startup was a carefully constructed fiction, a shell company created by my lawyer to serve as the perfect financial trap. Vanessa bit her lip, still hesitant. But our savings, that's a lot of money, Caleb. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. It took every ounce of self-control not to recoil from her touch. I know, honey, but sometimes you have to take a risk to get a big reward. Just think about what we could do with that kind of return, the vacations we could take, the college fund we could set up for Emily. I saw the moment she wavered, the gleam of greed and possibility in her eyes. Well, she said, maybe we could invest a little, just to. Testing the waters, I shook my head, pressing my advantage. It's all or nothing, Vanessa. An opportunity like this, it's once in a lifetime. We'd be crazy not to go all in. For a moment, I thought I'd pushed too hard, but then Vanessa nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. Okay, let's do it. I returned her smile, squeezing her hand. You won't regret this, honey, I promise. As I gathered up the papers, my mind was already racing ahead to the next steps. The startup was just a beginning. I had plans within plans, each one designed to tighten the financial noose around Vanessa's neck. Over the next few weeks, I carefully laid the groundwork. I encouraged Vanessa to take out a second mortgage on our home, spinning tales of the amazing returns we'd see from our investment. All the while, I was secretly transferring my personal assets into protected accounts, building a financial fortress she couldn't touch. One evening, as we sat watching TV, I casually mentioned an article I'd read about credit scores. It's crazy how much those three little numbers can affect your life, I mused. Hey, when was the last time we checked ours? Vanessa shrugged, her attention still on the screen. I don't know, a while ago, I guess. What? I affected a concerned frown. Well, with all the identity theft going around these days, it might be a good idea to keep a closer eye on things. Tell you what, why don't I set up some alerts? That way, we'll know right away if anything looks off. She nodded absently, and I had to suppress a smirk. Little did she know, I'd already begun creating a complex web of minor debts in her name. Nothing too obvious, nothing that would raise immediate red flags. But over time, those small dings would add up, slowly but surely damaging her credit score. The real coup came a few days later, when I presented Vanessa with a stack of documents to sign. Just some routine financial stuff, I explained casually. Insurance updates, investment paperwork, that kind of thing. She barely glanced at the pages before putting pen to paper, completely unaware of the trap I had set. She cast a cursory glance at the documents before sweeping her signature across the bottom of each one. Had she taken the time to peruse them with due diligence, she might have discerned the presence of a particular instrument conferring power of attorney over our jointly held assets. Yet she did not, and I filed the papers away with a profound sense of satisfaction. As the weeks dissolved into months, I diligently continued constructing my separate, secure financial foundation. Offshore accounts, cryptocurrency investments. I left no avenue unexplored in my quest to safeguard my assets and future earnings. All the while, I observed as Vanessa grew increasingly animated about our investment in the startup. She would check her phone incessantly, eager for updates from our non-existent former student. I provided her with just enough information to maintain her engagement, painting vivid portraits of the wealth that awaited us. You know, she remarked one evening over dinner, her eyes alight with anticipation, I have been thinking, once this investment yields its returns, perhaps I could reduce my hours at work and devote more time to Emily. I offered an encouraging nod, even as my stomach twisted with revulsion. Did she genuinely believe she merited such happiness after her transgressions? That sounds wonderful, my dear. I lied smoothly. I am certain Emily would cherish that. As I cleared the dishes that night, I permitted myself a moment of contemplation. The financial snare was meticulously set. Vanessa was all but gift-wrapped for the impending catastrophe. And yet, I glanced over at her, curled upon the sofa with Emily, reading a bedtime story. For a fleeting, painful moment, I beheld the woman with whom I had fallen in love, the woman I once believed would stand by my side forever. But then I blinked, and the illusion disintegrated. That woman had vanished, if she had ever truly existed at all. In her place remained a stranger who had betrayed me in the most profound manner conceivable. I turned back to the sink. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. I stood in the doorway of Nathan's office, observing as he paced back and forth, his face a mask of barely contained panic. It had been 3 days. Several months had passed since I had anonymously reported his fraudulent business practices, and now, at last, the dominoes were beginning to fall. "I don't understand," Nathan muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Everything was fine, and then suddenly it's as though the entire world is falling apart. I stepped into the room, my expression a carefully crafted blend of concern and confusion. "What's going on? Talk to me." He whirled to face me, his eyes wild. "It's a nightmare, Caleb. Clients are pulling out left and right. The IRS is breathing down my neck. And I've got partners calling me every 5 minutes demanding explanations I can't give them." I moved closer, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. It took every ounce of self-control not to curl my fingers into a fist and strike him. "Jesus, Nate, that sounds serious. How can I help?" Nathan sagged into his chair, looking utterly defeated. I don't know if anyone can help at this point. I'm in deep, Caleb. Deeper than you can possibly imagine." "Oh, if only he knew." "Come on," I said, forcing warmth into my voice. "You're my brother. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Why don't you walk me through what's been happening?" For the next hour, I listened as Nathan poured out his tale of woe. With each revelation of fraud, each admission of cooked books and falsified reports, I felt a savage joy building inside me. I was recording every word, of course, the hidden device in my pocket capturing it all for posterity. "And now I've got the IRS crawling up my ass," Nathan finished, his head in his hands. "I don't know what to do, Caleb. I'm screwed." I leaned forward, my voice low and intense. "Listen to me now. We're going to get through this. I've got a friend in the financial sector. Let me introduce you to him. Maybe he can help straighten things out." Nathan looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "You'd do that for me? After everything?" I smiled, the picture of fraternal forgiveness. "Of course. You're my brother." 2 days later, I introduced Nathan to my friend. In reality, the undercover investigator I had hired was digging even deeper into Nathan's shady dealings. I watched with satisfaction as Nathan, desperate for any lifeline, spilled secret after secret to the man he believed was his savior. As the weeks passed, I played my role to perfection, the concerned, supportive brother, always there with a sympathetic ear or a word of encouragement. All the while, I was gathering more evidence, recording more damning admissions. I even made sure to be seen publicly supporting Nathan, maintaining my good guy image even as I orchestrated his downfall. I would show up at his office with coffee and donuts or invite him over for family dinners. To the outside world, we were the picture of brotherly love, but behind the scenes, I was twisting the knife deeper and deeper. Anonymous tips to his remaining business partners about his unreliability, whispers in the right ears about his questionable practices. Each move was calculated to push Nathan further toward the edge. And then, just when I thought things could not get any sweeter, Nathan handed me the ultimate weapon on a silver platter. We were in his office late one night. Nathan, 3 sheets to the wind, was pouring his heart out once again. I had been carefully steering the conversation toward his personal life, and finally, he took the bait. "You know what the worst part is, Caleb?" he slurred, waving his glass for emphasis. "I'm losing everything. My business, my reputation, and for what? A few cheap thrills with your wife." I froze, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nathan's eyes widened as he realized what he had let slip. "Caleb, I didn't mean, but it was too late." The floodgates had opened, and Nathan, drunk and desperate, spilled every sordid detail of his affair with Vanessa. I sat there, my face a mask of shock and betrayal, even as I inwardly rejoiced. It was all being recorded, every damning word. Finally, tears wound down his face, a portrait of misery and guilt. I stood up. "I think I should go," I said, my voice trembling with what Nathan would assume was emotion. "Caleb, wait," Nathan pleaded. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, you can't tell anyone about this. It would destroy everything." I paused at the door, looking back at him for a moment. I was tempted to reveal everything, to watch the horror dawn on his face as he realized just how thoroughly I had played him. But no, the time wasn't right, not yet. "I need some time," I said, my voice carefully controlled. "Just don't call me for a while, okay?" I left him there, slumped in his chair, a broken man. As I drove home, a plan began to form in my mind. One final push to send Nathan over the edge. The next morning, I made an anonymous call to Nathan's wife, Sarah, using the same voice modulator I had employed for the business tips. I told her everything about Nathan's affair with Vanessa. Well, almost everything. I left out the part about Emily possibly being Nathan's child. That revelation was being saved for a more public occasion. Over the next few days, I watched from afar as Nathan's personal life imploded. Sarah threw him out of the house, filing for divorce almost immediately. Between that and his crumbling business, Nathan was a man on the edge, and I was there to witness it all, playing the role of the supportive, forgiving brother. I would invite him over for dinner, let him crash on my couch when things got too bad at home. All the while, I was gathering more evidence, recording more incriminating conversations. One night, as Nathan sat on my couch, his head in his hands, I decided to push a little further. "I just don't understand, Nate," I said, my voice soft with false sympathy. "How did things get so bad? I mean, the business stuff I can almost understand, but the affair with Vanessa, how could you do that to me?" Nathan looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and haunted. "I don't know, Caleb. I wish I had an answer. It just happened, and then it kept happening, and I couldn't stop it." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. The recording device in my pocket was capturing every word. "Tell me everything," I said. "Maybe if I understand, I can start to forgive." And so Nathan talked. He spilled every detail of the affair, every secret meeting, every lie they told. By the time he finished, I had enough information to destroy both him and Vanessa 10 times over. As I showed Nathan to the door that night, I allowed myself a small, calm smile. The trap was set. Nathan was primed for his fall, and the best part, he thought I was his only remaining ally. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie for what felt like the 100th time. The man staring back at me looked calm, collected, the picture of a happily married man about to celebrate his anniversary. If only they knew. "Caleb," Vanessa's voice floated up from downstairs. "Are you almost ready? The guests will be arriving soon." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Be right down, honey," I called back, my voice steady and warm. As I descended the stairs, I saw Vanessa fussing with a flower arrangement in the foyer. She looked beautiful in her emerald green dress, her hair swept up in an elegant updo. For a moment, my resolve wavered, but then I remembered the photos, the messages, the years of lies and betrayal. My heart hardened once more. "You look handsome," Vanessa said, smiling as she straightened my tie. I returned her smile, the perfect picture of a doting husband. "And you look stunning as always." The doorbell rang, and just like that, the show began. For the next hour, I played my part to perfection. I greeted guests with warm handshakes and hearty laughs, topped up drinks, and shared amusing anecdotes about our years together. All the while, my mind was racing, going over every detail of my plan. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment. The multimedia presentation was ready, loaded onto a USB. In my pocket drive, every piece of evidence had been meticulously organized and arranged for maximum impact. I had even hired a professional AV team, ostensibly to put together a touching anniversary tribute. As the party reached its peak, I caught the eye of the AV technician and gave a subtle nod. It was time. I clinked my glass, calling for everyone's attention. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. Friends, family, colleagues. I began, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate Vanessa and me. These past 10 years have been quite a journey." I saw Vanessa beaming at me from across the room, Nathan standing awkwardly by her side. If only they knew what was coming. "Before we cut the cake, I'd like to share something special with all of you, a little trip down memory lane, if you will." The lights dimmed, and the projector hummed to life. I stepped to the side, my heart pounding, as the first image appeared on the screen. It was a photo from our wedding day, Vanessa and I, young and in love, gazing into each other's eyes. A collective murmur rippled through the crowd. "Vanessa," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "when I married you, I thought I knew everything about you. I thought we'd build a life of honesty, trust, and mutual respect." The next slide appeared, a photo of Vanessa and Nathan at the Eiffel Tower, his arm around her waist. But it seems I was wrong. A gasp went up from the assembled guests. Vanessa's face drained of color, her eyes darting frantically between me and the screen. "Caleb," she whispered, "what are you doing?" I ignored her, pressing on with my presentation. For the past 6 years, my wife and my brother have been carrying on an affair behind my back. More photos flashed across the screen. Vanessa and Nathan on various business trips, snippets of their intimate text conversations, credit card statements showing hotel stays and expensive gifts. They lied to me, to all of you. Time and again, they have failed us all. I continued, my voice unwavering despite the turmoil churning within me. They have betrayed not only me but every single person in this room who ever believed in the sanctity of marriage and family. Nathan attempted to step forward, his face a mask of panic. "Caleb, please, we can explain." I raised a hand, silencing him. "Oh, I believe you have done quite enough explaining, Nathan. In fact, why don't we let everyone hear it in your own words?" With the press of a button, Nathan's drunken confession from that night in his office filled the room. I watched as the color drained from his face and as Vanessa crumpled into a nearby chair. But I was not finished, not by a long shot. "And now, the final piece of this sordid puzzle," I declared, my voice cutting through the shocked murmurs of the crowd. As if their betrayal were not enough, they have robbed me of something even more precious. I paused, allowing the tension to build. "My daughter." The room fell deathly silent as I revealed the results of the paternity test I had secretly conducted. Emily, the little girl I had loved and raised for 5 years, was not mine. Vanessa was openly sobbing now, her makeup running in black streaks down her face. Nathan stood frozen, his eyes wide with horror. As for me, I maintained my calm, almost sympathetic demeanor. I was the wronged party here, taking the high road despite the magnitude of their betrayal. "I have struggled for months with how to handle this," I said, my voice softening. "I have prayed for guidance, for the strength to forgive. But in the end, I realized that the only way forward is to make a clean break." I turned to face Vanessa directly, my eyes meeting hers for the first time since the revelation began. "Vanessa, I am filing for divorce." The room erupted into chaos. Friends and family members surged forward, some to comfort me, others to confront Vanessa and Nathan. Through it all, I stood tall, accepting condolences with quiet dignity as I watched Vanessa being led away by her shocked parents. As Nathan slipped out through a side door, evading the angry murmurs of the crowd, I felt a profound weight lift from my shoulders. The truth had been revealed at last, and the reckoning had begun. The weeks following the anniversary party were a whirlwind of activity. I had anticipated that chaos would ensue, but even I was taken aback by the speed and ferocity with which everything unraveled. Vanessa was the first to experience the full impact of my meticulously laid plans. It began with a frantic phone call merely days after the party. "Caleb," she said, her voice trembling on the other end of the line. "Something's wrong with our bank accounts. All our savings, they're gone." I feigned concern, my voice a perfect blend of confusion and worry. "What do you mean, gone? That's impossible." "I don't know," she wailed. "The startup we invested in has declared bankruptcy. Everything we put in is just gone." I allowed a note of anger to creep into my voice. "The startup? You mean the one you insisted we pour all our money into?" It was a masterful bit of gaslighting, if I do say so myself. In reality, of course, I had been the one to push for the investment. But in the emotional aftermath of the party, Vanessa's memory was hazy. It was all too easy to plant the seed of doubt, to make her believe this had been her idea all along. I thought," she stammered, clearly thrown off balance. "Never mind," I cut her off. "I'll call the bank and see what I can find out." I hung up, a smile playing at my lips. The financial trap had been sprung, and Vanessa had walked right into it. Over the next few days, the blows kept coming. Vanessa discovered that not only were our savings gone, but we were now deeply in debt. The second mortgage she had supposedly insisted on taking out for additional investment loomed large, a millstone around her neck. Meanwhile, my lawyer had initiated aggressive divorce proceedings. Armed with a mountain of evidence I had accumulated, he painted a damning portrait of Vanessa as an unfaithful wife who had systematically deceived and financially abused me. Throughout our marriage, I made certain to be seen around town appearing haggard and stressed, playing the role of the wronged husband valiantly striving to hold everything together. The sympathy and support from the community were overwhelming. If only they had known the full extent of my machinations. Nathan, for his part, was faring no better. His business was in free fall, with clients fleeing in droves as whispers of his fraudulent practices spread through the grapevine. The IRS was breathing down his neck, and his former business partners were distancing themselves as quickly as they could. I watched from afar as Nathan made increasingly desperate moves, taking bigger and bigger risks in an attempt to stay afloat. Each failure only served to dig him deeper into the hole I had so carefully prepared. One particularly satisfying moment came when I overheard a conversation at the local coffee shop. Two of Nathan's former clients were huddled over their lattes, voices low but not quite low enough. "Can you believe it?" one of them muttered. "I heard he's been cooking the books for years. The IRS is going to crucify him." The other shook his head in disgust. "And to think we trusted him with our money. Thank God we got out when we did." I sipped my coffee, hiding my smile behind the rim of the cup. The whispers I had started, the evidence I had strategically leaked, it was all coming together beautifully. As the weeks wore on, Vanessa and Nathan found themselves increasingly isolated. Their shared social circle, disgusted by their actions, began to ostracize them. Invitations dried up, phone calls went unreturned, and even their closest friends could not bring themselves to stand by them in the face of such blatant betrayal. Vanessa, desperate for help, turned to her family. But I had been careful to cultivate strong relationships with her parents and siblings over the years. They had always seen me as the dependable, hard-working son-in-law, now faced with irrefutable evidence of her wrongdoing. Evidence of their daughter's infidelity and deceit led them to side with me. I will never forget the day Vanessa appeared at my new apartment, her eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "Please, Caleb," she begged. "I know I do not deserve it, but I need help. I do not know what to do." For a moment, I was tempted to reveal everything, to tell her precisely how thoroughly I had orchestrated her downfall. But no, the game was not over yet. "I am sorry, Vanessa," I said, my voice firm but not unkind, "but you made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences." I closed the door on her tearful face, feeling a mix of triumph and something else, something I was not quite ready to name, or perhaps just a bittersweet taste of a revenge long in the making. Whatever it was, I pushed it aside. There was still work to be done. The financial collapse was complete, but the final act of my plan was yet to come. As the dust began to settle from the financial implosion, I moved into the final phase of my plan. The divorce proceedings were well underway, and it was time to ensure I came out on top. My lawyer, a shark in an expensive suit, had been building our case meticulously. In our initial consultation, he had raised an eyebrow at the sheer volume of evidence I presented. "Mr. Matthews," he had said, leaning back in his chair, "I have to say, I have never seen a client so prepared." I had simply nodded, keeping my face neutral. I believe in being thorough. Now, as we sat across from Vanessa and her lawyer in the mediation room, that thoroughness was about to pay off. My lawyer began by painting a vivid picture of me as the victim of long-term emotional and financial abuse. He presented a timeline of Vanessa's affair, cross-referenced with major family events and financial decisions. "As you can see," he said, his voice dripping with barely concealed contempt, "Mrs. Matthews systematically deceived her husband while simultaneously pressuring him to make risky financial moves that her extramarital affairs had greatly benefited her lifestyle outside our marriage." Vanessa's attorney attempted to object, but the evidence was undeniable. Bank statements, credit card bills, and hotel receipts, all meticulously arranged to portray Vanessa in the most damaging manner. However, the decisive moment arrived when my lawyer played the recording of Vanessa's confession from the night I confronted her about the affair. Her tearful admission that she had remained with me solely for financial security reverberated throughout the courtroom, sealing her fate. I watched as Vanessa collapsed into her chair, all resistance gone. Her lawyer, sensing the hopelessness of their position, began negotiating for whatever concessions he could salvage. In the end, the settlement exceeded all my expectations. I retained the house, or what remained of it after the second mortgage, my pension, and the majority of our remaining assets. Vanessa departed with little more than her personal belongings and an overwhelming burden of debt. As for Emily, that was my masterstroke. "Your Honor," I said, speaking for the first time during the proceedings, "I wish to address the matter of Emily." Every eye turned toward me, a mixture of curiosity and weariness in their gazes. Despite the circumstances of her parentage, I continued, I love Emily as my own. She is innocent in all of this. I paused, allowing the tension to mount. However, I believe it is in her best interest to know her biological father. Therefore, I am willing to allow Vanessa and Nathan to raise her, with generous visitation rights reserved for myself. The room fell into silence. I could see the thoughts unfolding in everyone's minds. To them, I appeared magnanimous, placing Emily's well-being above my own suffering. In truth, I was liberating myself from the constant, painful reminder of Vanessa's betrayal, while simultaneously imposing upon her and Nathan the responsibility of raising a child amid their financial collapse. It was the perfect revenge, cold, calculated, and cloaked in the appearance of selflessness. As the divorce was finalized, I observed the culmination of my carefully constructed plan. Nathan, already reeling from the collapse of his business, now faced multiple investigations for tax evasion and fraud. I had ensured that news of his misdeeds reached potential employers and clients, effectively blacklisting him within the industry. Vanessa, once the darling of our social circle, had become a pariah. Whispers followed her wherever she went, her reputation left in tatters. The financial burden of raising Emily on her own, compounded by the mountain of debt I had saddled her with, guaranteed she would struggle for years to come. As for me, I emerged from the ordeal with my reputation not merely intact but enhanced. I was perceived as a strong, forgiving victim who had weathered a terrible betrayal with grace and dignity. It was this carefully cultivated image that secured me a prestigious teaching position at an exclusive private school in another state. A fresh start, far from the painful memories and the prying eyes of those familiar with my story. But I was not content to simply walk away. No, I had one final card to play. Using my newfound platform as a respected educator, I penned a best-selling book on overcoming betrayal, weathering the storm, a journey through infidelity and redemption. It hit the shelves just as I was settling into my new life. The book became a sensation, leading to talk show appearances, speaking engagements, and even whispers of a movie deal. Suddenly, I was everywhere. My story of resilience and forgiveness resonated with people across the country. Of course, the Caleb Matthews portrayed in those pages was a carefully crafted persona, the wronged husband who had found the strength to forgive, if not forget, the dedicated father who had placed his child's needs above his own pain, the man who had emerged from the ashes of betrayal stronger and wiser. It was the perfect coda to my symphony of revenge. Not only had I destroyed Vanessa and Nathan's lives, but I had turned their betrayal into my stepping stone to success. As I packed up my belongings, preparing to leave town, I reflected on the flawless execution of my plan. As I embarked upon my new life, I permitted myself a moment of quiet reflection. The past year had been a whirlwind of calculated maneuvers and meticulously orchestrated chaos. I had played the long game, and ultimately, I had emerged victorious. My thoughts turned to Vanessa and Nathan, now confronting a future defined by legal battles, financial ruin, and social exile. I thought of Emily, innocent and blissfully unaware of the storm that had torn her family asunder. For a fleeting instant, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Had I gone too far? But then I remembered the pain, the humiliation, the years of lies and betrayal. No, I resolved. They had made their choices, and now they must live with the consequences. I took one final look around the house that had once been our home. Then, without a backward glance, I stepped out the door and into my new life. Caleb Matthews, the wronged husband, the dedicated teacher, the best-selling author, was ready to face the world. Let Vanessa and Nathan contend with the wreckage they had wrought. I had a bright future ahead of me, built upon the ashes of their betrayal. And as I drove away from the town that had witnessed my deepest anguish and my most exquisite revenge, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. The game was over, and I had won. This is where our story draws to a close. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.